The flutterings of a dying swan.
Once again, Meghan Markle is doing her best to try and overshadow King Charles and Catherine. This comes as Prince William expresses fury behind the scenes, as both his brother and his father made a bid to sabotage his official visit to Brazil. So let me take you through this. Meghan Markle has now unveiled the date of her latest Netflix series. And guess what? Surprise, surprise. With Love, Meghan will air on Netflix the holiday celebration on December the 3rd, which is the exact date that the King and Queen Camilla will welcome the President of Germany for a state visit at Windsor Castle. But what was very crafty is that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, waited until after Meghan's announcement of her date to reveal that her Together at Christmas Carols service will return to Westminster Abbey on Friday, December 5th, 2 days after Meghan's release, with the theme of celebrating love in all its forms. And of course, this is a true star-studded but classy event that will include performances and readings by Kate Winslet, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Hannah Waddington, and Dan Smith. But there's still utter fury. Fantastic. Elon Musk posted, not just coinciding with a state visit, Meghan's holiday special will air just before Catherine's Christmas concert. Of course it will. Is there anyone on earth more jealous or more vindictive? But what I find so fascinating about this Lady Colin Cambpbell, who, by the way, joins us on fine form from her hospital bed as she recovers from this broken pelvis. But what fascinates me, Lady C, here is that yet again, this whole Netflix thing has been a disaster. Like, Meghan claimed that the special was going to be released in November, and then all of a sudden it's delayed until after Thanksgiving, yet she's still not prepared to call it a Christmas special. What is going on?
The flutterings of a dying swan. I think the flutterings of a dying swan. I actually am beginning to be very entertained by Meghan's ever increasingly desperate and pathetic attempts to be a swan living with grace when it's obvious that she's a dying swan. And, you know, it was never a Christmas special. It was never going to be mooted as a Christmas special. It couldn't stand the competition of being a Christmas special. And I think she's thrashing around yet again, trying to come up with some version of how she has converted failure into success. And when she's forced to dump something, it's not that she's forced to dump it. It's that the people who are dumping her have given her an opportunity to find a new way of doing things, you know? So, for instance, she doesn't need to do hour-long specials on boiling potatoes or, you know, boiling spaghetti. She can do it all in 2 minutes. And that's not because Netflix wants to dump her. It's because she has found a way to beat the system so that she will improve upon Netflix's failure to capitalize upon her outstanding success. I mean, I don't know what you think, but I just think that everything she comes up with is so pathetic. It's so pointedly pathetic. What do you think?
100%. And I mean, this week, Lady C, we saw her making the most ugly bagel I think I've ever seen in my life. I mean, have you seen this, ladies? I mean, look at number one, the nasty way that she plonks that cream cheese on. Remembering she's meant to be a food influencer. And then it's fruit and it's jam and I mean, people have actually said to me, Lady C, if this is what she feeds those poor children, then God help them. But I mean, If she honestly believes that this is going to turn her into a food influencer, I just think she's delusional. Okay, half of you watching this are not subscribed to Dan Wootton Outspoken, and the best way you can support what we do is by hitting that subscribe button. It is completely free, and turn on the notification bell to be alerted to our new episodes.
Well, she is delusional, Dan. I mean, I think, aren't we all more or less aware of the fact that anything to do with Meghan and food and entertainment has flopped? I mean, she set herself up as somebody who was going to turn ordinary everyday activities into something special by elevating them. So what's the ordinary everyday activity that she's going to elevate? So you're going to buy a pack of crisps and put them in another packet. You're going to waste your time writing faux labels to faux guests so that you can have faux contents in the faux series that everybody's going to believe is real. I mean, the woman, I think, is so delusional. And what to me is really interesting is that Netflix had no choice but to go with the bottom of the barrel. And let's remember, Netflix had a lot of involvement in all of this. Netflix went into tremendous trouble and expense to try to turn this turkey into a fine racehorse, and it wasn't able to succeed. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix and Meghan have little or nothing to do with each other in the future, unless, of course, they're going to have her reading her divorce memoirs. I was so distraught. H turned out to be such a racist. He said to me, but Meg, the baby, he said, you're not black enough for me. I mean, what else, girl, to do? Why do you think I've been browning up for all these years? It's because H said to me, I'm not black enough. And I mean, everybody thinks that racism is when you're pretending to be too white. Well, I pretended to be too white for years and got away with it. But it's when I had to pretend to be too black that the problem started. I mean, the whole thing is a study in insanity.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I want to come to William's anger about the behavior, not just of Harry, but also his father too. This is exclusive reporting from Tom Sykes, who writes, Lady C, the royalist has learned that Prince William was left hurt and angry after his father, of all people, stole the spotlight from him, staging a headline-grabbing investiture for David Beckham as William's Earthshot Awards were kicking off in Brazil. For William, who has spent 5 years turning the prize into his signature platform, the timing, even though the investiture was long scheduled, was more than a clash of diaries. It was seen, according to friends, as a deliberate snub. The decision by King Charles to knight Beckham after 14 years was greeted by William's friends with disbelief. Of all weeks, one friend of William's told the royalist, this was the one week he needed the family to be pulling for him. Instead, it felt like they were pulling against him. He was left hurt and angry. The Earthshot Prize, conceived by William to fund climate innovation through 5 $1.3 million grants awarded annually, is the most precise articulation of how he intends to reign: practical, global, and apolitical. This year's ceremony, held in Rio de Janeiro, was meant to signal both his maturity and his father's trust, with William also representing the king at the COP30 environmental conference in Belém later in the week. But instead of the seamless royal choreography William envisaged, his trip unravelled into a succession of distractions. The family sabotaged it from beginning to end, the William friend said. It was pathetic, like the worst of the bad old days. On the day his plane landed, Prince Harry's team announced a parallel quasi-royal tour of Canada, scheduled miraculously to overlap with William's itinerary, Meghan Markle's PR team then leaked news of her return to acting to The Sun midweek, instantly derailing British coverage of the Earthshot Prize. The irritant of the Sussexes is old and familiar, but what stung William much more, Tom Sykes is told, was the betrayal from inside the tent. David Beckham had waited 15 years, said a former courtier, and they had to do it this week. When you think of how gracious William had been paying tribute to his father's work in his speech, it's a slap in the face. I'm afraid Charles still can't bear not to be the centre of attention. If he couldn't be at COP30 himself, then nobody was allowed to have the moment. The King's allies insist it was a coincidence without malice. His Majesty is immensely proud of his son's work, a friend of Charles told the Daily Beast. Investitures are scheduled months in advance. One friend of the King's, however, did concede that there is an increasingly delicate father-son dynamic, dramatically worsened by William's open contempt for the shambolic way his father handled the ex-Prince Andrew crisis and continues to handle the Harry issue. Since the King's terminal cancer diagnosis, the balance of royal power has shifted. William is now increasingly demanding the right to lead long-term planning, public messaging, and crucially crisis management. As the friend puts it, the change of reign is happening in real time, whether they admit it or not. Charles, however, has no intention of fading into the background. He insists on maintaining a full public schedule, sometimes to the alarm of Camilla and his doctors, and he guards the symbols of kingship, audiences, investitures, the odd glittering photo call as fiercely as ever. Friends say that having waited his whole life for his role, he's not about to start taking instruction from anyone, even his son. The Beckham affair, trivial on its face, is the perfect metaphor. The king, ill but determined, still demands to be the headline act. The heir, already governing in many people's mind, is trying to build something lasting in the space his father won't vacate. The king sometimes feel he's been airbrushed out of his own legacy. One family friend said, it's not deliberate on William's part, but there is a cold professionalism about him. The message is the future starts now. Charles finds that almost unbearable. In the Amazon, one of the scripted remarks William delivered was about the duty each generation owes the next. It seems William doesn't think his father has got the message. So, Lady C, how do you feel about this briefing? The fact that, yes, it was terrible what Harry and Meghan did, but you sort of expect it from them. They are so far down in the gutter. Of course, they're going to purposefully try and sabotage William's big moment in Brazil, which they did. And in some ways, it was successful because, of course, Meghan ended up on the front pages with her return to acting, which is, of course, an incredibly desperate move on her part. But William's disappointment seems most to be with his father and the fact that the David Beckham investiture was on this week. But first, we've partnered with Gundry MD to share this information with you. Would you believe me if I told you inside your pantry right now is one of the healthiest foods on the planet? Yep, it's true. And it's not some weird trendy superfood. Spoiler alert, it's olive oil. You're probably used to cooking with it, but there are countless ways to use olive oil to help yourself look and feel younger. For example, olive oil is a natural way to help you achieve a more youthful appearance. Besides helping you look younger on the outside, it's a fantastic tool for your insides as well. According to Dr. Stephen Gundry, a famous cardiothoracic surgeon, nutrition expert, and health advocate, you should get as much high-quality olive oil into your daily routine as possible, whether it's taking a shot of it daily or keeping a bottle of it in your bathroom medicine cabinet. But what kind of olive oil is best for your health? Well, any olive oil can give you some benefits, but if you're looking to get the best results, it matters a lot which one you pick. The olive oil industry is huge, right? You can tell that by the number of olive oil brands you see at the grocery store, and you can bet they're not all made with the consumer in mind. Many brands may even cut corners one way or another to increase profits. When Dr. Gundry came to that realization, he was appalled. But some olive oils are so powerful, it may only take a few tablespoons a week to see these incredible health benefits. So how can you tell between an olive oil that can be a health booster and which one isn't up to par? In an effort to answer that question, Dr. Gundry has decided to take a stand and release his personal research and findings. The video has gone viral since its release, and it's important you see it so you can start benefiting immediately. You can watch the video right now by going to getolive1.com/outspoken or by clicking the link in the description box below. That's getolive1.com/outspoken or just click on the link in the description box below. People who have taken his advice have shared their results with him, saying the olive oil they bought after learning his simple rules have helped change their lives. So make sure you go to getolive1.com/outspoken or click on the link in the description box below this video. But now, back to the show.
Well, Dan, may I make one or two
Please.
points? The first one is that everybody now expects Harry and Meghan to try to come up with a spoiler. And the fact is, they're no longer able to spoil anything. What they will do is they will say something and it gets reported upon. But the days of Harry and Meghan actually stealing anybody's thunder are over, in my view. So when Meghan does her nonsense and Harry does his nonsense in Canada, it's actually the pathetic example of attention stealers whose ploys no longer work. The press report upon it, but does it actually take away any real attention from what's going on? I don't think it took away any attention from the Earthshot Prize or anything to do with the Earthshot Prize. I think where the King and William are concerned, it's the fact of the matter is that anyway you cut it, investitures are agreed months in advance, and those being invested are informed months in advance. This conflict of scheduling will have been known to both households, if you wish to regard it as a conflict of scheduling. But there is another way of looking at it, which is it was not a conflict of scheduling. It was knowing that Harry and Meghan would try to come up with something. They were going to show that both the King and William could actually continue to have the spotlight upon them, and that sharing the spotlight wasn't going to actually steal it from either of them. So I'm not sure I agree with the interpretation that this was some dreadful deliberate conflict. And I also get where Tom is coming from in terms of William's professionalism and William's, shall we say, dispassionate exactitude. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And Charles' rather more sentimental approach to things. But William is aware, William is now a part of a soft regency, in much the same way that Charles was with the late Queen. And they are rubbing along, in my view, rather more happily and effectively than they are being given credit for. Of course, there is always room for speculation, and there's room for the enjoyment of conflict. But is that going to actually affect the basics of the relationship? Charles knows William is really in the wings, ready, increasingly available for being on the stage full time. Charles did this with the Queen for the last 10 years of her reign. And so I honestly do not see that the personal difficulties that some people would like to believe exist really do exist. And I also do not think that in this instance that Charles set out to make the point that he is king, he is knighting Sir David Beckham, he is demanding his half hour in the limelight, and he is not relegating. I think the fact of the matter is that with rolling news being what it is, it's not like in the good old days where there was only space for one major story per DM. Now there's room for more than one. And I think the households are taking that into account and behaving accordingly. Maybe I am taking a more measured and sophisticated view of it than other people, but that's my view.
Lady C, I just want to ask you about some new exclusive reporting from Andrew Lowney, who is the author of the book entitled, which was, of course, in part behind Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's downfall. Now, you know, around all of that case, there has been some briefing, which I've found quite unpalatable, against the late Queen Elizabeth II. He is pushing back against that somewhat, with Buckingham Palace sources insisting that the Queen was forced by Prince Philip to turn a blind eye to Prince Andrew's, what he describes as a sex addiction. So let me just take you through this reporting, Lady C, then I'll get you to react. Andrew Lowney breaks on his Substack a top Buckingham Palace source revealed exclusively today to the Lowney Report that the Queen was deeply concerned for years over her son's erratic behaviour. Still, she was forced by Prince Philip to, quote, ignore it all. Her Majesty and Philip were deeply concerned because their son became obsessed with sex and it interfered with his royal responsibilities, the top source revealed. They were aware Andrew preferred spending excessive lengths of time pursuing sexual activities rather than focusing on his duties. It ranks high among the biggest regrets the Queen had. The source pointed out another regret the Queen had when it came to acting too slow. The other was the Aberfan disaster back in 1966, when the Queen faced massive public dissent for waiting 8 days before visiting the Welsh mining village where a slag heap collapsed, killing 140 people, primarily children. Until the day she died, that tragedy remained one of her biggest regrets. But Lady C, what do you make of this counter-narrative which is now being pushed to Andrew Lowney to try and defend the Queen? Because you remember a couple of weeks back in the Sunday Times, King Charles's allies were saying, well, this is all of the late Queen's fault, Lady C, and I didn't like that.
Well, Dan, quite frankly, I find the whole thing so distasteful and so regrettable. And I mean, I feel as if I'm swimming in a sea of feces. I'd much rather not be a part of any of it. Having said that, Angeloni has a very interesting take on Andrew's life. I know people who know former Prince Andrew very well. And I'm not going to mention any names, but some of these are household names. And not one of them recognizes the sex fiend that Angeloni and his people come up with. Maybe Andrew was as discreet as Jeffrey Epstein and nobody knew anything about his activities. I find that very, very unusual. I am delighted to see that Andrew is not going to be trying to trash the late Queen over this. I can see where it creates an opportunity to not only trash Prince Philip, but also to open the door onto the fact that maybe Andrew inherited things from his father that will give source to another book or two, or maybe 3 or 4. I actually am very disturbed by the level of reportage that has been taking place recently in terms generally across the board with the newspapers generally. And I'm speaking about both the reputable newspapers and the disreputable publications. And some of the things that are being asserted as fact are so bizarre and so clearly fiction. If you really know the people and what has gone on, that you, I mean, this all makes for fantastic news coverage. It's certainly a winning opportunity for people who want to write books to make great fortunes at the same time, and maybe even establish their reputations as Don Quixotes of not of La Mancha, but of London. And no, I mean, it will be interesting to see 5 or 10 years from now, when people look back at this phase, whether they're going to hang their heads in shame and embarrassment for some of the hypotheses that were presented as if they were factual, when many people knew they were farcical, and many supposed authorities should have known they were farcical. Just because something is printed in a gutter press newspaper and is then published in a book 20 years later doesn't make it factual. And I'm sorry, a lot of this is I think it's actually frightening what's going on. And I don't think that people understand the danger that this presents to our nation and to its stability and to its sorry, I'm just checking on something, and to our well-being as a nation. I think it's pretty frightening what's going on.
Well, it is empowering the Republicans without any doubt. Lady C, I know you've got to get back to looking after yourself, but thank you so much for being here. We've been worried about you. We are sending you so much love and support. Getting home next week to Castle Goring, I know, is going to be such an important part in your recovery, but we adore you. And of course, Lady Colin Cambpbell is continuing her broadcasts temporarily from her hospital bed at her YouTube page, which you can find by searching for Lady Colin Cambpbell. Lady C, thank you. God bless you. We will see you very soon. And of course, if you do want first access to the Royal Uncancelled After Show here on Outspoken, then do sign up to my Substack. The address www.outspoken.live. Paid monthly and annual subscribers get first access to our Royal Uncancelled After Show every single weekday with no advertising whatsoever. That address again, www.outspoken.live. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.